So the City of Johannesburg is planning to source about 100 billion rand in order to upgrade water and electricity infrastructure. Residents are currently facing both water restrictions and load shedding. Mayor Dada Morero says the city will invest in building new substations and water reservoirs with the latest technology. Meanwhile, City Power says it's working on ensuring that water supply is not affected by the ongoing power failures. So for more on how this is faring, let's bring in City Power CEO, that's Tshifularo Mashava, who joins us via our video link this morning. Thanks very much indeed for your time and welcome to the AM report. I wonder as a start if you are able to explain for us in layman's terms how the ongoing power outages potentially pose a threat specifically to water infrastructure, because we've heard in the past how, for instance, sometimes pumps and pump stations are affected when they don't get power.
All right. Good morning. With regards to that, if I could put it in this way, so we supply electricity to rainwater. Now, we take electricity from Eskom at an intake point, which is called Fortsburg substation from City Power side. From Fortsburg, that electricity gets supplied into Orlando substation, which is a City Power substation. From Orlando substation, we then take that power to Ekenhof substation. Now, Ekenhof substation, we've built it within the perimeter of rainwater. Now, rainwater obviously uses that electricity to then pump the water. So it therefore means if our Ekenhof substation is off, that will then pose challenges for rainwater, because then they will not be able to fill their reservoirs to the desired level. So that's where the difficulty is.
Exactly.
And in this instance, if you look at Ekenhof substation, if we have an outage on that side, it will then mean that Joburg Water would not be able to have the water.
Makes sense. Some of those challenges that you speak of are related to infrastructure. In fact, in some instances, we're told the infrastructure is about 60 years old. Whose responsibility is it to ensure that this infrastructure is at least maintained, if not completely replaced?
That's quite correct. So I spoke of Orlando switching station from our side, and Orlando switching station is over 50 years old, which therefore means that it has passed its useful life unless certain components in there have been replaced over time. It is our responsibility, it is City of Johannesburg's responsibility, it is City Power's responsibility to ensure that that infrastructure gets replaced over time. And that kind of work obviously attracts billions of rands of investment.
Well, I'm sure you know my next question is just quite an obvious one. Why haven't we replaced the infrastructure then?
So City Power is looking at a 26 billion rand backlog of infrastructure investment on its own within the City of Johannesburg. Now, if you look at the allocation, if you look at what we were given this particular year, we were given about 1.2 billion rands. And in that 1.2 billion rands, it actually only about 500 million or so that actually goes into this investment, because the rest of the funds find that developer tied or is actually grants for electrification. So with less than a billion rands per year, it then becomes impractical to be able to do all the replacement that you're supposed to do. So in short, we have not received the funding required for us to be able to do what we need to do, hence the backlog.
And how long has this been an issue? Because, you know, I imagine some of the residents in Joburg might be thinking to themselves, this has only been flagged in this very prominent way because of the very real issues that are being faced by residents. In other words, the chickens have come home to roost, and that's why, City Power itself isn't even being vocal about this.
This has actually been flagged over a number of years. 2017, there was a big media drive around it as well. We were talking about the same thing. The figure was much less, obviously, at that point in time. And if you recall, there was an energy endeavor that was hosted in May. And during that time as well, we did raise this concern. So I would say that City of Johannesburg, over the years, has been quite aware of the challenges. But if you look at the investment that we received, 2017, 2018, 2019, it's been substantially low compared to the other years. and that would obviously mean bigger backlogs. And this is obviously compounded by the fact that we're having a lot of our infrastructure blowing up now during load shedding as well. And just to create the context, you'll have inrush current, perhaps after load shedding, because the customers would have left their appliances on, and all this comes at the same time. When that happens, the one day report, we had about 5 of our mini subs blow up at the same time within 5 minutes. And we're looking at about 2.5 million rands blowing up within 5 minutes. So load shedding on its own is putting more of a strain on an infrastructure that is already low, that is already old. The rate of theft and vandalism as well. Last year alone, we had over 2,000 incidents of theft and vandalism. So between load shedding, theft and vandalism, these two culprits are ensuring that our infrastructure investment has to be even more.
Sure. And one wonders, which kind of investor would want to put money into something like that, given just how much of a threat, or just how many threats the infrastructure itself is facing? But another issue that's been raised, at least in the past few months, has been around how City Power relies mainly on contractors to go out and fix some of the power failures, not only in various communities, but I imagine also for your substations. How much of a challenge is that, not only on the financial side, but when it comes to things like competence and knowing how to fix this issue so that there isn't a recurrence of the same problems?
Yes, sure. We do have quality control processes internally, and we also have capability building programs internally. But what we've done for this year is we've placed an ad about last month or so, wherein we intend to recruit an additional 150 electricians for City Power. The team is busy with that shortlisting exercise right now, and we will be doing the placement, and that is to ensure that we reduce our reliance on contractors to that effect. There will also be room for work to be outsourced, because if you look at the fact that we've got also a massive backlog in maintenance as well. But we do not want the first responder to our customer to be a contractor. We want a first responder to the customer to be a City Power electrician, because customer centricity is also tied to the culture internally at City Power, and becomes a little bit complex when you've got multiple service providers in that side. So we are investing in sourcing. We are also investing in co-production programs. We will be partnering with the communities where we supply electricity, so that we get the people from that community, we train them, and they become part of our employee pipeline.
The real concern, of course, is that some of the vandalism may very well be carried out by people within City Power. At least that's the, let's call it the status quo within Eskom. And the CEO of Eskom has come out to say that they suspect their own employees may very well be, sabotaging the work that the utility needs to do. Is that something you're also dealing with at a City Power level?
I'd like to think it's a bit different at City Power. I'd like to think that we've got employees who are all teaming behind City Power to ensure that we protect our infrastructure. In fact, it's our very employees that have raised the concerns over the years that when we bring in contractors into our system, we are opening it up to be vulnerable. So I'd like, hence our strategy of saying that we're going to insource, we're going to have more of our own employees doing the work as opposed to the contractors. But also we are going to be partnering with the communities where we supply, because I'd imagine if you're in that community, you wouldn't want to have blackouts in your own community. So our partnership with communities and our own employees, we believe that that's the way to go. City Power employees, as far as I'm concerned, are behind City Power and not a threat to City Power.
We certainly hope so. Dada Morero has come out to say that they're hoping to raise, or the city is hoping to raise 100 billion rand. Hopefully some of that will be going to City Power to fix some of the infrastructure issues. You've already mentioned how difficult it is to attract investors for the last couple of years. In what ways do you reckon things should be done differently now in order to reach this 100 billion rand target?
I believe City of Johannesburg is on the right path right now in terms of raising that money, because part of what we need to do is to look at green energy and the possibilities there in terms of finding money in support of that particular initiative. At DBSA, we are in touch with them as well, and they're more than willing to also come to the party to assist us. So I don't think it's a question of investors not being there. I think it's about the City of Johannesburg alignment with those investors that will ensure that we get the funding that we need.
When you say the City of Joburg is on the right path, what are you basing that on?
In terms of the plans that I've seen, what they've come to us to ask for and what they are tabling. So, for example, from our side, they are raising money to assist us in terms of the green agenda. Would like to be able to, for example, have a virtual power station in terms of renewable energy, looking at the rooftop space that is available within the City of Johannesburg. And the market is definitely willing to fund something like that. So what the money that we are asking for, the business case is solid to be able to get funding for that. And that's what I mean.
All right. Hopefully the next time you and I speak, that money will be in City Power's purse, at the very least, because of what's at stake. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Tshifularo Mashava is the CEO of City Power. Once again, appreciate your time this morning.